All right, welcome everyone to the Web3 webinar. This is episode 7. Today we're talking about NFTs and smart contracts. We're going to get into some examples. We're going to get into the possibilities that the two technologies, when used together, unlock. And then I'll walk through different use cases, different business use cases, and different use cases in gaming and Web3 in general. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff today. It's a slightly longer webinar. So let's get right into it. Before we get started, a little bit about us. We're a technology company with a design-first approach. We work with startups and enterprise firms, and we help them build Web3 solutions. We help them build fintech solutions, as well as health tech solutions. And a bit about myself. My name's Shaan. I'm a technology researcher. I'm a specialist in Web3. I've been in the space for about 8 years now. I also have a interest in emerging technologies apart from Web3 as well. So I'll get started with the basics. We'll talk about NFTs, smart contracts, and we'll talk about how they can be used together. So an NFT, I'm assuming most people already know this, but I'll just go through it again for the sake of our audience that is getting into the space now. NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens. It's a type of digital token that is unique and scarce. It offers proof of ownership of something, which is usually a digital asset. It could also be digital art or anything in the digital world. And NFTs are digital versions of physical collector's items. No two NFTs are the same. They can be the same, but they can also, unless they've been programmed that way to hold a similar object, they're not the same. Each NFT is unique in its own way. Fungibility is a concept that's important to understand when you're thinking of NFTs. It's the ability of an asset to be exchanged for another of the exact same type. For example, a $5 note is fungible with every other $5 note in the world because they're the exact same type. They hold the exact same value as one another. So when you look at something that's non-fungible, it could be like the Mona Lisa or the Oppenheimer diamond or something where it's where there's only one real one. Only one unique real version exists. So it's not the same in value as anything else. It's always unique, and it's there's only one of it that exists in the world. So this is a concept that I think is important to understand when we're talking about NFTs in general. I think NFTs and blockchain tech enables digital scarcity. So I'll expand on that now. The internet and digital technologies, information technologies in general, they created an abundance of data. So you could take information and you could just abundantly replicate it multiple times, endlessly, where everyone could have a piece of that data at no extra cost. So for example, if I took a picture with a celebrity from my phone, I could email that out to thousands of people, millions of people within seconds, and I could create thousands or millions of versions of that picture right away. So it allowed for digital abundance. Blockchain tech, on the other hand, allows for digital scarcity, and this might not sound like a good thing in the beginning, but it actually is a great use case because it allows you to do a range of different things with the technology, and it enables digital scarcity in the sense that an NFT is a digital version of something in the physical world that's scarce, that there's only one version of. NFTs, some parts of NFTs can be replicated, but and then those replicated parts can be shared, but the authenticity and the realness of an NFT is not easy to replicate. For example, when you're looking at some of these NFTs that are popular today, some of these popular picture programs, like for example, like you have these pictures of like Bored Apes, or you have pictures of cats or anything else. You could take a screenshot of the cat. You could take a screenshot of the picture of the ape or whatever cartoon image is showing up on your screen, and you could replicate that photograph or that image. But you can't replicate the metadata that the NFT is holding. You can't replicate what's under the hood, if you will. So an NFT allows you, like, some data can be replicated, but not all data. The nuts and bolts of how it works on the inside, or the stuff that makes it unique under the hood, that cannot be replicated through a screenshot. So NFTs exist on blockchain networks, primarily Ethereum, as of I guess they were the first ones to start. Now we have several networks, and you can have a certificate of authenticity as well as legal rights to the digital asset that you own through an NFT. So that covers NFTs. Now I'll get into smart contracts, and then we'll tie it up on how they work together. Before we tie it all up, I'll also go into oracles as well. I'll spend some time, maybe a couple of slides on oracles, because it's important to understand what they are and how they function to get the most out of combining NFTs and smart contracts. So smart contracts are one of the greatest features, in my opinion, of blockchain technology, and they basically just digitally connect. They form a digital contract of the terms of agreements between users, and they help those users set their terms of agreement in code. So you can enter an agreement with another user, and once it's set into code, that is called a smart contract. A smart contract can also be programmed to self-execute when a set of predefined conditions are met. Predefined conditions, I'll give you a few examples of predefined conditions on the next slide, but there's several predefined conditions. One very simple one could be time. So it could say like, when we reach a certain time, then X should happen or Y should happen, and that'll happen when that time is reached. Smart contracts also exist on decentralized and distributed blockchain networks. So they usually sit on top of blockchain networks such as Ethereum or any of the modern, the current large blockchain networks enable smart contracts to exist. So smart contracts can be programmed to trigger other smart contracts as well. So there's an endless layer of logic that you can put into place. So I can have a smart contract that when it's triggered, that could be the precondition to trigger another smart contract, or to set a code, or to set a message, or send something else to another smart contract, which then triggers it and brings it into live action. Smart contracts can also hold assets, NFTs, and cryptocurrencies within them. This is a very important point to remember. Smart contracts, so let's say you and I agree, we enter a smart contract about, this is an example I've used often, but let's say we're entering a smart contract about the outcome of a basketball game. So we're betting on the outcome of the basketball game. What we can do is, you and I could enter a bet, and I could say the Lakers are going to win, and you say the Knicks are going to win, and we can each put a cryptocurrency, so we can each put like a Bitcoin into the smart contract. And when that smart contract concludes, when the game is over and the results are announced, that smart contract would then hold the assets for the duration of the game. So your Bitcoin and my Bitcoin, or whatever, your NFT and my NFT. And as soon as the outcome of the game is concluded, it'll then distribute the NFTs or distribute the cryptocurrency in a fashion that is compliant with the outcome of the game. So smart contracts can hold assets, NFTs, and cryptocurrencies within them. That's important to remember. And obviously, these assets can be distributed upon the execution of a smart contract, or when a set of conditions are met based on code or logic, which we have defined in the contract previously. So oracles, before we wrap up smart contracts, oracles are this protocol that help. There's several oracles, actually. It's not just one protocol, but there's several companies that offer oracles. They're a trusted third-party service that provides smart contracts with authenticated external sources of data from the real world. This data is usually communicated in API form, and oracles can give you all kinds of data about the real world to your smart contract. So they can connect your smart contracts with events in the outside world. These events can be like temperature, outcome of elections, outcomes of games, outcomes of anything else. And because they're authenticated, they help connect the real world to the digital world. And then that helps us design our logic or our code in a way where we can interact with the real world with using these oracles. The biggest oracle company as of this recording is probably Chainlink, but there's a lot of other good ones that are coming out fast. So oracles can be created to provide a wide range of data for smart contracts. I've kind of listed a few here: weather data, outcome of events, outcome of legal cases, financial statistics, economic data, interest rates, market data, performance data from like a vehicle or a machine, etc. So you could have like an oracle that gives you the performance data of your smart electric car, for example. And then the thing to remember is that smart contracts are meant to be executed when a condition is met in the real world, such as the result of a basketball game. So oracles are the sources of data that provide, that make sure authenticated data about real world events reaches your smart contracts. So now we're getting into, like, now that we've finished defining smart contracts, oracles, and NFTs, let's talk about how they can interact with each other. So the first thing is NFTs can be embedded within smart contracts. So a smart contract can hold an NFT, which means a smart contract can own an NFT within it, which is then transferred to a user or another contract based on the rules and events defined in the smart contract. So that's very important to remember. And the second is the exact opposite, which is that smart contracts can be embedded in an NFT. And that could, the smart contracts could govern how the assets within an NFT or how the single asset within an NFT is accessed. So for example, a user can access a song which is embedded in an NFT through a smart contract, and the number of plays or the time for which that song is accessible to the user can be defined on, can be based on how much they pay. So all those terms could be agreed upon through a set of smart contracts that the NFT holds, and then that would then those smart contracts would then unlock the song that's held by the NFT for a certain number of plays for a certain number of time or whatever. This process will probably run in the background, so we won't have to, like, as users, we won't have to really go through all of these steps. But as designers of a program, or as the developers of a program, we would this is a very interesting use case where both things are inversely possible. Smart contracts can hold NFTs, and NFTs can hold smart contracts within them. So these are the two primary ways, and they open up the doors to a ton of logic. So here's some benefits of combining smart contracts and NFTs. It really gives the users flexibility to unlock a wide array of use cases. And you can get into extremely complex contractual structures and agreements through the combination of smart contracts, NFTs, one holding the other holding the other. So stuff like that. And you can really get into some really complex logic and business logic, financial logic, charitable logic, any kind of organizational logic using these two tools, smart contracts and NFTs that have something of value within them. And then obviously the underlying blockchain mechanisms make the contracts transparent, tamper-proof, and auditable in real time. This simplifies the speed and arbitration process. Let's hope there is none, but if there ever is, it's really helps speed up the arbitration process in the future. So I'll get into 3 examples before we get to questions, before we end and get to questions. The first example is gaming. So gaming is, you could have NFT and smart contract based games where you could have a series of smart contracts and NFTs that combine, the combinations of which govern kind of how the assets within the game are distributed, or how certain users within the game are able to do certain things or not. So for example, a player's in-game items such as skins or in-game assets or in-game tools can be embedded in different NFTs. And through a series of various smart contracts, the players could agree upon a set of rules that define how the assets of the competitors in a tournament could go to the winner of each round. So let's say there's 5 people in each round. The winner would get a portion or all of the in-game assets of the losers, and they could kind of like, you could govern those relationships using NFTs and smart contracts in different ways. Second example is streaming. So each movie or episode, I personally believe this is going to be a real thing, and I think this is going to be the digital rights is going to be completely revamped using this technology. And I think in the future, digital rights and all digital assets in the future, especially those containing media, movies, music, stuff like that, they're going to be governed through this mechanism. So I think a movie or an episode of a show or something of that sort, like a short film or something, could be embedded in an NFT. It could be held by an NFT. And then users can access the show through a smart contract that takes a micropayment. Of course, this happens in the background. You don't have to do it. But it could be a micropayment that unlocks the contract for, like, let's say five plays or for 3 days or whatever. And then it serves the movie on your screen, the movie or the episode or whatever you're watching on the screen or your device. And then that is available there for a certain period of time. So currently what happens is when you go to the streaming platforms, the big ones right now, you just hit play and it plays it for you. Same thing's going to happen in the future, except in the future, the back end the back end of how it works is going to be different. So your streaming service could just be the portal that kind of helps you buy or access assets through different NFTs in the background, but that won't be in the foreground, so you won't have to deal with it. But it'll completely change the way it works for creators and for the industry in general. It's going to really redefine some of the economics and some of the dynamics and the power structures between creators, distributors, and stuff like that. So I think this is a very realistic use case that we're already seeing happen. And another example is art. So an artist can embed their art into an NFT and then create a smart contract that could define the terms of its use. So for example, if a gallery across the world wants to display your art, they can unlock it for a certain period of time, and then in return you could get a portion of the ticket sales or something of that sort. So whatever agreement you want to get into, but there needs to be some way to authenticate and verify that that's what really happens after the fact. So once you have those mechanisms in place, and obviously those mechanisms could be set in place using oracles and different APIs and different data collection tools. And once that's in place, then you could kind of you could just automate the whole thing and let it run. So the third example is art exhibits. And with that, I'll get to the conclusion and we'll open it up to questions. Smart contracts and NFTs complement each other, as I described, and they help open up an entirely new range of use cases and transaction types. So it just allows for increased and complex levels of logic. So you could really get into some complicated territory here, where you could have all kinds of complex business logic and organizational logic that gets executed through the combination of NFTs and smart contracts. NFTs have the ability to instantly transform digital art, music, media, and other digital assets into verifiable assets, which are easy to buy and sell using blockchain tech. That also adds transparency and security to the internet, which maybe in some cases didn't exist in previous versions. And lastly, NFTs have several enterprise use cases and huge implications for media and the digital rights management. So I think I got into this with the couple slides ago. So I think that's a very big deal. And with that, we conclude the NFTs and smart contracts and how they can be used together. Before I open it up to questions, I just want to talk about how we can help. So at Ionixx Technologies, we help build software for enterprise and startups. And we can help with the following ways. We can help with NFT advisory services. We can help you choose your platform and translate your logic and processes into code. We can also help create the checks and measures of your project that your project requires. We can do a lot of stress testing and stuff like that with your smart contracts and your NFTs to make sure everything works and everything is secure. We can create the right set of smart contracts for your project, as well as integrate on-chain and off-chain oracles for your smart contracts. We can help you choose which oracles to go with as well. We do a comprehensive relationship mapping where there's the user or the creator or the management team can really understand what the relationship look like. We can audit and test your code, as well as provide design side support. We have a very strong design team in-house, and we can help you create and launch tokens for your project as well as launch your project itself on a live platform. So those are some of the ways in which we can help. We also do a lot of consulting work and advisory, so we can help with just general questions as well, if you have some. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. I do have all my contact information up on the screen, so you can reach me via email, web, Telegram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. I check most of those pretty often. And if you like, you can even get in touch with anyone from the team through our website, ionixtech.com. That's XX. ionixxtech.com. All right, thanks. I'll open it up for questions. All right, so the first question is, can oracles be likened to APIs in the way they function? They are similar. APIs deliver some sort of data, and oracles do the same thing. They're a form of APIs, I guess. And I think in the future, we're going to have an explosion in oracles, because we're going to have every IoT device could be a possible input for an oracle. So I think oracles are similar to APIs in the way that they provide data from one source to another. So that is a very good question. Thank you for that. Second question is, are all blockchains supported by smart contracts? I think all blockchains do support smart contracts. Maybe the Bitcoin blockchain, the OG Bitcoin blockchain maybe doesn't, but there's layers on top of that do support smart contracts. So every other Ethereum and every other blockchain after that, every other major one at least, does support smart contracting as far as I know. And with interoperability of blockchains, we can write the smart contracts here and kind of execute something over there. So the platforms are pretty good at making it where it's democratized and we can work with one platform, even if we don't want to use another. They've built the bridges and the interoperable protocols to make it possible. The next question is, what are the risks of combining smart contracts and NFTs? So I think the primary risk of combining the two is not testing your code, not testing your logic. We do a lot of stress testing in-house. So we kind of test everything, make sure all the relationships are sound, and we run different scenarios in which we test different permutations and combinations. And then the second biggest risk, I think, with combining smart contracts and NFTs, and even just generally NFTs and smart contracts, from a developer perspective, I think it's poorly written code. And poorly written code can be avoided once it's tested. You can make sure the code's written well. You can get it audited by someone at our firm or somewhere else. And then once it's audited, you can kind of test it to make sure everything works well. So there is a way to make sure your code is not poorly written, and it's auditing and testing. Last question that we have for today is, can dynamic NFTs be embedded in conjunction with smart contracts? So I've been talking about regular NFTs so far. We covered dynamic NFTs in the previous episode of the Web3 webinar. I think it was episode 6 was the previous one. So we covered dynamic NFTs in that. And the answer is yes, dynamic NFTs can be embedded in conjunction with smart contracts. And I think it would, the fact that dynamic NFTs have so many variables and moving parts within them as well, I think that makes for even more interesting use cases, dynamic NFTs and smart contracts. So very good question. Thank you very much for that. I think that's all the questions we have for today. If you have any other questions, if any of the viewers have other questions, please feel free to reach out to me on email, Telegram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can reach out to anyone from our team through our website as well. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.